After a time, Carrington Spud went away from Elizabeth's imagination, the Charles Bohr Jr.'s younger sister, and Patches the cat, like all cats do, went to the spirit realm to live in the electromagnetic field that surrounds the energy or is the energy in the universe. And so um, they travel by quantum entanglement. And so Patches the cat and Carrington Spud um, decide to go on an adventure, and they are in a small town in Vietnam, and they just happen to be getting a bite to eat when they step out, and um, there's a lady at a fish fishing port, and she's screaming and she's mad and she's crazy, and so she says, "Help! Help! The the gizmos are after me." And most people think that she's a schizophrenic, but as it would happen to be, she is actually a Jupiterian, and so Carrington Spud hel- helps her to relax using his magical green glow that helps him fly 3 feet off the ground. And he hovers above her shoulder and helps her relax. And so Patches the cat spirit asks her, "What can we do for you, ma'am?" And so they go and so the woman says, "The evil group of villainous traitors have marched on my planet and they're destroying everything, and I don't know what to do." And so Carrington Spud and Patches the cat thought, "Well, I don't know, what should we do?" And so they decide that they're going to go and fly away to Jupiter and save the Jupiterians. And this woman happened to be going to a lecture that day, and she had ended up leaving the lecture early to come to Vietnam to search for help because she had actually just been going to Earth to see if there was somebody there and happened to land in Vietnam with her rocket ship. And so as time went on, she goes and they have a battle, and the Jupiterians are aided by the Great National Council of Zoomians, and so they go. Carrington Spud and Patches the cat are sucked through the electromagnetic field, and they go through a gravitational pull of a black hole and are swept into the singularity and twisted by the extreme forces of gravity, and then they end up in alternate parallel universe, and it's a bubble universe, and there, everything's made of soap. And so they meet the Soapians, who are living on Soapville, and they have a lot of soap that Carrington Spud and this crazy cat spirit, Patches the cat, can save them from the evil terrestrians who are attacking their planet. And as it turns out, the terrestrians are actually people from our universe. We just don't know that they exist. And so they're like, um, you know, there's a whole nuclear war, and like people get invaded, and and then there's a giant fight between like these two dudes, these two big fat dudes, and the fat dudes like fight over, you know, soap, obviously, and terrestrial terrain, and so it's really a decision of who gets the middle ground, in the Venn diagram. And so as time goes on, this, you know, the Jupiterians come in through the black hole, because it's really a wormhole. It's two black holes connected, and but Patches didn't know that, and Carrington didn't know that before they went through, and so yeah, and so the Jupiterians solve it with their, wonderful professor like lectures that teach the Sopians and the Terrestrians that it's okay and they can all get along and live in a happy world, and, that's filled with soap bubbles. And so Soap Bubble Land is this imaginary land that's in the middle of the Venn diagram, between the bubble universe and our bubble universe, the terrestrial universe. And so, in this little itty bitty in between spot, Soap Bubble Land is completely made out of soap bubbles, and the people there are soap bubbles, and the food is made out of soap bubbles, and spirit cats don't eat, so and imaginary friends don't eat either, unless they eat imaginary food. And there is imaginary food, it's just it's the imaginary food that's in the context of the thoughts that are made of soap of the Sopians. And so and they live there in the bubble land with the terrestrians and the Jupiterians. And there is a great, uh, awesome dignitary who comes to town, and it turns out it's this emperor from a distant land. And so he sits down and has a meeting with the emperor of soap of the soap bubble place. And so he says, I would like to trade you for the hand of your daughter. And so, the soap bubble emperor is like, yeah, yeah, but you're gonna have to like earn it. And so like he makes him earn it. And the way that he makes him earn it is he goes and has him collect this magical heartstone from, the Canyon of Bazooga. And so in this Canyon of Bazooga, where they only speak Rastian, it's really hard to translate this stuff. So, Carrington Spud's actually linguistically challenged, and so is Patches the cat. But apparently they had a Jupiterian translator, and he was like a little professor. So he was pretty smart, and his wife actually helped with most of the translating. He wasn't very good. Everybody assumes that the man does everything, but in reality, he's got a strong woman behind him. And so Carrington Spud and um, the translator and Patches the cat, they go and they get this magical heartstone. They bring it to the emperor, and when they bring it to the emperor gets this magical heartstone, and it gives the emperor the power to fly, and so he flies too close to the sun, and but it's not our sun; it's a different sun, and he blows up, and then he creates a big black hole, and then they're swept through everything swept through a totally different universe, and it turns out it's a wormhole, not a black hole, and they go through a space-time bridge and end up is Hawking radiation on the other side, and then they're in this otherly world universe thingy place, and they end up in a universe that's pretty much like ours, but you know they just have they instead of having capitalism, you buy everything with candy because candy's better than capitalism and money, and it just makes more sense to buy things with candy because candy's delicious, and anybody who can't appreciate candy has never been a child, and probably is a mean old grumpy old fart. And so Carrington Spud and Patches the cat, um, they decide to retire on the planet of Europa. And Europa is a planet where there are magical fairies and trees that talk. And so, they meet with one of these trees that talk. And they say, how goes it? And, the tree that talks goes, well, it's been great, but we could really use some new real estate because, our population size is growing and we are running out of land, and the fairies are hoarders, and they've taken all the land and they just hoard it, and that's what they do, and they're not so nice. And so, with everything that they're doing, we need to invade. And so, they invade the area, and then they take back some land that used to belong to the talking trees, and the fairies are upset. And then, the talking trees put taxes, heavy taxes, on the fairies because that's how war works. And so the heavy taxes cause the fairies to be angry, and then they get aggressive, and then there's thousands of years of war, and eventually they sign a peace treaty, and it doesn't really work too well for that long, and then they sign another one and another one, and finally they sign the Blue Accords because the they had a paintball war and everything ended up painted blue, and so Carrington Spud and um, Patches the cat, they decide to retire in this old folks home that is blue, and they live in the blue house in the blue wood, and it turns out there's elves that live there, and the elves, yeah, they talk to this one therapist elf, and the therapist elf is, a cool guy, and he teaches them how to make flying bicycles. And so, after they make the flying bicycles, they go and they just, relax on a not too shabby tropical island somewhere, and they eat coconuts and drink coconut water and coconut milk, and they have juice and fun, and they sit on their porch and, you know, they talk to the talking animals. And that's pretty much how things go for about 10 billion gazillion years. And then, they meet up um, with Charles Bohr Jr. in an alleyway in a meat market, and now he's like 30, and they're like, um, "Wow, wonderful meeting you here." And then they're like, "You want to do something?" And Charles Bohr is like, "Yeah." And so they go to Forest Park on Art Hill, and they Carrington Spud and Charles Bohr and everybody, and Patches the cat, they are all reunited with their homeland, and they had to zoom through a bunch of portals to get there, and Carrington Spud opened most of them, but Patches had to create some out of the energy field, electromagnetic energy field, and then they decide to build a house because the art museum's abandoned and run down, and it's they decide to fix it up, and then dignities and celebrities and the Empire of Jupiter decide to visit every now and then, and they have relatives come over and whatnot, and it's a big affair, and you should read about it because it's a great story. And yeah, that's the end of this because that's how the story ends. Yep. The story's done. It's done. Yep. Goodbye. The end.